Millions of men don't need another person telling them they're oppressed. They need someone to tell them that they still matter. Hence the rise of the internet dad. Let's get into it.
It's uncomfortable to wake up early. Good. Wake up early. That's what we're doing. Wake up early and do something physical. Work out, lift, sprint, run, pull-ups, push-ups, dips, rope climbs, swim, surf. Wake up and freaking get after it.
Before we go further, my name is Casey. I'm a husband, father, and I've been a therapist for more than 14 years, which is how I know that there is a severe decline in the encouragement being given to men. I created this channel with the express interest of building a future of faith, fatherhood, and freedom in America. If you can get behind that, please like on the way in. I'd love to earn your subscription. There have been hundreds of cultural factors that have led to the rise of the need for fathers on the internet to begin to counsel and to mentor young men into a society that has continually cast them aside. Part of that is because of the fatherlessness crisis that so many young men are facing as they raise into adulthood and they don't have a father in the home, perhaps the highest rate of all time, and in our country it's higher than any other country. Henceforth, along with the rise of feminism, young men across the country have been told that they don't matter, and their fathers, even when they are present, perhaps are not giving them the type of mentorship and guidance that men really need. And that is why so many strong and masculine and even dangerous men have stepped up to the plate in order to take the mantle of the internet father.
Genuinely masculine. Genuine masculinity is not out here to hurt people. It's absolutely the opposite. It's out here to protect. And when bad things happen, they call traditionally masculine men. If you need a firefighter, you need a masculine man. When you call the police because of the problem you have, you want masculine men. And as soon as a woman or a man is in trouble, when you look for backup, you look for masculine men. And masculine men have a duty to provide and protect those they care about. We have a duty to do things we don't feel like doing because we know we're supposed to do them. And that's why we stayed in the Titanic and died. Those were masculine men.
Where did you get your views about this from?
This is what I grew up with. It's the family I grew up around. And
your father, your mother?
Yeah,
both?
and the world I lived in. And I think a lot of the things I'm saying now about masculinity and how people should act in the world, how the world should function, were considered completely normal and accepted by everybody only 20 years ago.
Previous generations of men would have had mentorship and correction from people like coaches, pastors, even their fathers themselves, uncles and extended family, men, grandfathers that cast themselves into the lives of these young men and try to train and teach them up into the ways, really giving rites of passage into adulthood. However, we know from the reduction in male spaces and the reduction really through the increase of feminism, the reduction of everything masculine, that this has caused a need within the market that men would seek to have some mentorship, some authority, and some masculine examples that they can begin to live their life in the echo of. And that is why so many of these men have come to step up to the plate. Men wanted someone to tell them the truth. They wanted structure, discipline, learning how to take responsibility. They wanted to even know how to be good fathers themselves. And that has led to several of my heroes. And I hope that some of these men resonate with you too. And perhaps we can discuss the difference between what a good father figure mentor on the internet looks like and what some of the negative influences have done.
He would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on. And he'd say, "Boss, we got this and that and the other thing." And I'd look at him and I'd say, "Good." And finally one day he was telling me about some issue that he was having, some problem, and he said, "I already know what you're going to say." And I said, "Well, what am I going to say?" He said, "You're going to say good." He said, "That's what you always say. When something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say good." And I said, "Well, yeah, when things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. Didn't get promoted? Good. More time to get better."
There are literally thousands of examples of men on the internet that have stepped up to the plate to be internet dads, and some of them are not even fathers themselves, but they have a cadre, a cohort of men that are following them and learning to live their life by the principles that they have established. The first one, and perhaps one that a lot of men have risen up to be mentored by. The first in this long line is going to be Jordan B. Peterson. Now, he gives the tenets of order versus chaos. He tells men to do things like clean their room, take responsibility, hold their shoulders back, stand up straight, look people in the eye, all of those things that seemed the basic principles of what it looked like to raise into adulthood as a man, but simply was a necessary message because so many men were not hearing that from their own fathers or from the culture writ large. There are so many forces that are working in antithesis to men that Jordan B. Peterson spoke right into, and he was unafraid to take the consequences of that speech, and he did it anyway.
Attitude isn't an attitude that you adopt. It's a practice that you strive to embody. You have your reasons for being doubtful about the plenitude of the world. And you could count up all the terrible things that have happened to you in your life and the people you love. How can I be grateful for that? How can I be grateful for the suffering of children? That's tough. Nietzsche's point here is, it's hard. It's a virtue. It's something you strive to make manifest. Can you strive to be grateful? Despite everything, I'm going to be grateful despite everything. I'm going to prepare to serve good.
One of the next mentors that so many young men, especially from my generation, millennials and Gen Xers, really idealized was Joe Rogan. He showed a genuine masculine curiosity, the ability to have long-form conversations and even go deep into conspiratorial thinking and really be intellectually rigorous and asking questions and being open, having a lot of trait openness in his conversations, and even operating several businesses, having one of the most successful long-running podcasts, as well as being involved with MMA in so many ways. On top of being a comedian, this was an idol worth having.
Theo Vaughn's going through the exact same thing. And last time I was on the podcast, he was explaining it to me. And it freaks me out because I know Theo has had conversations before, like even publicly. He had a Netflix taping and it didn't go well. It was like they actually they shelved it. They never used it. And there was all these stories from people that were there saying he bombed. I think he just had kind of a breakdown. And then he was talking to the crowd, and there's a video of it where he said, the people were shaking, "Hey, we still love you." He goes, "Thank you. Look, I'm trying not to take my own life. That's what I'm trying to do right now." Yeah. And you hear stuff like that, and you just go like, "Oh, Jesus Christ." I've known too many people that I didn't think were going to kill themselves and then did. And then he goes down these spirals where he starts talking about world events and freaking out. I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ. I got to help this dude."
Many of the men associated with the online fatherhood movement are ex-military because so many men look up to the discipline and the rigor that it takes in order to be someone who's been ex-military or is a military veteran. And one of those, in fact, is Jocko Willing. He has run businesses himself. You may even see some of his energy drinks in stores, which I personally do not like. I think they taste really poor, but he is a good model and developer of stoic ideals, along with being strong and dangerous. That is precisely what so many young men have been craving in our culture today.
Temper is a weakness. It's a weakness. It's a weakness to lose your temper. When you lose your temper, you're showing everyone around you that you can't control yourself, that you can't control your emotions. And if you can't control your emotions, how can you control anything? It's immature. It messes up your decision-making process. When you're getting all emotional, all freaked out about something, you're losing your mind. You're not going to make good decisions. And everybody sees that and everybody knows it. So what you have to do is stay calm. Take a step back. Take a breath. Get control of yourself. And then proceed forward.
Next on the list is a neuro-ophthalmologist from Stanford University who is a professor and has one of perhaps the best health podcasts that you can ever imagine. He teaches us how to optimize our time, our attention, our mental acuity, along with, yes, even our eyesight. And he is a great example of what it looks like to be a Renaissance man. However, Huberman, I believe, not a father himself, and he has had a lot of hit pieces come out about him in recent years, as have the rest of these men, but he has taken those arrows for his brand, and he is a great example of what it looks like to be scientific, to be intellectual, and to still be strong.
Any high amount of dopamine that comes to you without effort before it will eventually destroy you.
Wow.
Or bring you close to destruction. So something that just feels so good that all you had to do was open a package. All you had to do was take a pill.
Or open a website.
That is the slippery slope. I'm not a huge UFC fan, but I've been to a few fights and it's fun. Look, someday I imagine, given my interests, maybe I'll just buy a ticket and it'd be a great thrill, right? But if I were a kid and I suddenly were just planted there every single night, guess what? You move one row back, it's gonna feel like bad seating. This is why the children of very wealthy people often destroy their lives, because they haven't had to work to have all this stuff.
As a bonus, I have to throw in my dude Nick Freitas, who is ex-military himself, an ex-legislator out of the state of Virginia, and someone who knows political theory and political science, and despite his military service, is intellectually rigorous and challenging. His podcast, Making the Argument, along with his millions and millions of views on Instagram Shorts, is one of the most entertaining ways that you can get good information and get it in an entertaining way. And I give him, this is a little bonus credit because he might be one of the lesser knowns on this list.
I had someone ask me today, how do you know when it's time to leave your state? Here's 4 things to consider. 1, is your state making it difficult for you to be able to provide for your family? 2, is your state making it difficult for you to be able to defend your family? This could mean infringing on your Second Amendment rights, but it could also mean letting violent offenders out of jail early or just not prosecuting them in the first place. 3, is your state making it difficult for you to raise and educate your children the way that you want? Because I guarantee you there's a lot of propaganda going in on government schools. So, depending on how you answered those 3 questions, you now go on to the 4th question. That is, do you really have any shot at changing the political dynamic of the state that you're in a reasonable amount of time? If the answer to that one is no, well, you're basically a tax farm for the people trying to destroy the things that you love. So if you don't want to subsidize the powers that be, then maybe it's time to prayerfully consider moving somewhere else.
One of the downsides that men will have experienced because of getting their fatherhood and mentorship bona fides from online podcasters and online voices is that there are voices that have been antithetical to what it looks like to be a good man and what it looks like to have honor and integrity, that have spoken what looks like truth into the culture because they've gone anti-feminist and they have had great success in gathering the troops behind them because they're speaking to men in ways that respect men, but they also degrade in many ways what it looks like to be a good man, and there are a lot of negatives that can come out of that. And of course, podcast clips became mentorship, which means that you can get a great vast amount of diverse information, not all of it good. YouTube became the locker room in some ways, and men need locker room spaces. We need to have male-to-male interaction, but it's different and perhaps not as good for you when it's not in person. There are rewards to having real life, tangible relationships and friendships. Long-form podcasts replace community. That means you're the sum total of the 5 people you listen to the most instead of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That is a difference in kind, and it won't have been a positive one in the long run. Parasocial relationships replaced real relationships, and the sad truth is that many of these podcasters will never know us. They will never even meet us for 1 or 10 seconds in person, and that ultimately has a degrading influence on us when we don't have these things in real life. Men increasingly are raised by algorithms, and as Gen Z comes into adulthood, we will see what those digital natives, how that affects them long term. And internet creators became moral frameworks. The reason why I can give you a short list of the ones who are good examples is because it is a short list. There are so many negative ones that it's especially enthralling and compelling when there are good influences.
Do you think women typically are happier as housewives rather than a career?
Well, the answer is absolutely and utterly yes, because giving life is the most beautiful thing a female can do. That's what you evolved to do. That's the thing that men cannot do. I think that women who focus on having children and do their best to be good mothers in the end are the happiest females on the planet. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I don't see the point in a woman slaving away for a corporation that doesn't care about her as opposed to slaving away for her own flesh and blood. I think that's a complete waste of a life.
The sad truth is that there are a great many men out there who will know more about their favorite podcast hosts than they do their own fathers. And that is the mission and some of the reason for this channel in the first place was to try to re-influence the roles of fathers in the lives of their children by affecting the culture in positive ways so that men can take back the mantle of being the authority and leaders in their relationships, in their communities, and in their own families.
What do you do on the days when you're just not feeling it?
Those days. Those days when I'm tired or worn out or just basically sick of the grind. What do I do on those days? I go anyways.
When men are starving for masculinity, it's easier to fall for forfeit guidance. It's easier to fall for people who are masquerading in manhood instead of actually accomplishing it. And that is one of the real risks that we run as we begin to have a great many men being raised by influencers. Because I've been a therapist for more than 14 years, I have seen men fall by the wayside and go silent and go dark, and a lot of that is because of the lack of good mentorship, but also their lack of place in society. And I would love to see a reintegration of positive masculinity, and that's part of the reason why I've started this channel. I have worked with broken families. I've worked with people struggling to get out of addiction. I've worked with people who obviously were raised in extremely difficult circumstances, and I saw the culture slowly going in a direction of pushing men by the wayside. And that is the reason why men like Nick Freitas or men like Andrew Huberman have been so received in the culture. Is there is a vacuum, and that vacuum has been filled sometimes by dirt that needed to be picked up, but was picked up by all too many people. And I want, with all that I am, to see my son raised in the type of culture where he receives at least an ecumenical amount of respect and dignity. Just because of how he was born, he should not be at a disadvantage. And that is why these masculine voices, strong with integrity, are so important. And I pray that the future of this country will include faith, fatherhood, and freedom for men, especially men, but for women too. Let's see if we can make this happen together. I have some questions for you. Who are the father figures that you loved and that you integrated into your life based on what you've seen online? Are there ones who have put you at a disadvantage where some of their advice was actually a negative in your life? And how have you seen the digital natives, those raised with the internet throughout their whole lives, lean further, if they have, lean further into these parasocial relationships and ultimately taking their cues from a digital dad instead of their real father? I would love to have your support. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and I would love it if you subscribe to the channel. I'll try my best to earn it, digital dad or not. I'll go back to being a father to my 4 kids now in real life. Have a good one.